So I find there are times when I know that my gut is telling me something and I'm trying to listen. I'm trying to discern the thing that I'm maybe supposed to do, or maybe it's something I'm supposed to follow and some action I'm supposed to take or something like that. And then it just doesn't turn out how I thought it would. I was right, but I wasn't. Has anyone else ever had that? Let me explain. Welcome back to Soulful Wonderings, the space where we search for meaning in everyday life and honor the lessons that help us grow. I'm Heather and I'm your host. And before we get started, we would love it if you would subscribe to our podcast. You can also head over to our socials and follow us there. We would love that as well. And of course, all of that will be in the show notes. So take a look. So as I was preparing this episode, deciding what I was going to talk about, working on getting recorded and things like that, it's actually right around Christmas time. We're just getting past Christmas. So, the holidays are still on my mind, and I know I've talked at length about how this can just be an odd time of year for me, sort of reconciling the celebration of this time of year with, the loss of the people who they're just not here anymore. And then, of course, you you add to that my questions about religion that have been coming up, and just kind of that whole thing with my journey and research and what everything really means. Kind of what is this holiday really about? I know what it used to be. It's kind of a little different now. And anyway, so you add all those things up, and here we are. I struggle to get into the spirit of the season. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it. Had a great time with family. Got some really incredible, thoughtful gifts, and like I said, I really did enjoy the time. And I feel like at the end of the day, that is what it's all about. It's about being with the people that we love and enjoying that time together and whatnot. But I struggled to get into what people would probably call the spirit of the season. I just wasn't that into it. I wasn't listening to Christmas music as soon as Halloween was over. And, I was well into December before I put my tree up, which is, all those things are just so unlike me. But it's just harder for me now to really get into that part of the spirit, I think. And there's often that I feel like I'm doing things because I'm supposed to, because it's the thing. It's the societal norm. It is the thing that is expected of me, not so much because I really want to. And again, that's probably a whole different story there too, that it shouldn't be about just this time of year. Why can't I just do these things all the time? And I kind of do. So it's just become really an odd time for me. And again, don't get me wrong. There are parts that I really do enjoy and I cherish. It's just kind of hard to understand the why of it for me right now. Anyway, I digress. That is not what this episode is about, right? Let's get back to intuition. And I feel like I need to give you just a little bit of a backstory so you know where I'm coming from with this. And I can remember back to one of the times that my dad was in the hospital. He was having, should I say trigger warning? I don't know. He was having one of his legs amputated. He actually eventually lost both of them. This was due to diabetes. And truthfully, I can't remember which one this was, if it was the first or the second. I feel like it was the second, but anyway, not important. So we were in Monroe because he was still living in our family home at the time, and that would have been, I guess, the closest place for him to go. And it was, it's a really good hospital, actually. I think he was very, he was pleased with the choice he had made, and he felt like he could really trust these doctors and everything. So, here we were going to get this taken care of. But I remember it was getting close to Christmas when all this happened. I had gone up for the surgery, of course. And of course, at the time, my sister was still alive. But I just remember after the surgery that he really wasn't doing so good, right? At least that's the way it seemed. They had given him morphine, which, for that kind of surgery, I guess that's to be expected, especially then. But he was having what appeared to be horrible dreams or visions, or something was happening. And again, at this point in my life, I did not know all the things that I know now. I just knew weird things would happen, and I would just chalk them up to weird things and move on. Um, but what was happening with him, it's, he would call out and say things that just sounded odd, and you thought, okay, that's not happening here. So what is he seeing? Is he dreaming? Is he seeing something? People back in the day would say that the drugs were making him out of his head. Has anyone ever heard that? That especially what the older generation would say back in that day. Oh, he's just talking out of his head. But it was really, it was a little bit jarring when it would happen. I think he may have been having flashbacks to his time in the service. That was kind of all I could equate it to, just based on some of the things that he was saying. That it was almost like he was back in battle somehow. And the truth is, maybe it was just normal recovery for such an intense surgery. I mean, this is a pretty intense thing to happen, and of course he was older and whatnot. Or maybe he really wasn't doing well. In some ways, it's a little bit hard to discern that. But his health was not overall that great. So I remember having a conversation with my sister that we wondered if this would be his last Christmas with us. This was a conversation that we were having. Is this the last one? And kind of what to do. You want to make it special. It's the last one. But here's the thing. There's kind of another side to that coin, right? At this same time, my sister was actually in her cancer battle as well. She had been going for treatment. This one was for her brain tumor. And she and I don't know, we were just kind of spending time together while we were there. Of course, I mean, you're in the waiting rooms, you're around the hospital, going to get food and different things. And this was not our first rodeo. We had been through something similar with my mom when she was in the hospital. So, we were just together a lot. She told me a little bit about her treatments. And I remember her telling me how they had made this, I'm going to call it a cage type thing, that they would put it around her head because you had to hold, her head had to stay completely still because they were doing this laser treatment. And again, this was many years ago, so I'm sure it's developed now. But then it was kind of a new thing, and it was something they were trying. And it was this: they would pinpoint that laser to the tumor. And of course, she's talking about this cage thing around her head so she couldn't move. And I would get claustrophobic, okay, just thinking about it, just hearing her explain it to me. I was, starting to feel that anxiety rise up because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, no. And she really didn't say anything. Maybe she didn't want to let herself go there. But she kind of acted like, I'm not going to say she acted like it wasn't a big deal, but she didn't make a big deal of it, if that makes sense. But it's almost like I could kind of see it in her eyes that, basically she wasn't okay with it. This is not like, this was like, oh yeah, it's fine. I think she definitely was not okay with that, but she knew that it was something she had to do. And that's very much how my sister was, that, okay, I've got to do it. So I've got to do it. But it was one of those moments, kind of a rare moment, that I got a glimpse of just how hard this battle really was. And just how much she was really going through. And also how much she would hide from me, because she didn't really share a lot of this stuff with me. She didn't really, I don't know if she didn't want me to worry, or if she didn't want to talk about it, or if she just didn't want me to know because she didn't I said she didn't want me to worry. But again, it was just that small, rare glimpse into how much she was hiding from me, but also what just a total badass that she really was. And I remember there was this one point that we had stepped outside at the hospital, so we were out front because she wanted to make some phone calls. And of course, you don't want to sit in a waiting room doing all that. And she was telling me how she wanted to do a celebration for Jesus this Christmas. Right? She explained, it just seems like it's the right thing to do. After all, that's why we celebrate, right? And we should celebrate him. And how do you celebrate a birthday? And I'm going, okay, I'm with her the whole time. I'm thinking, sure, why not? That's actually a really fun idea. It's Jesus's birthday. Let's have a birthday party, I thought this was a great idea. So she's doing things like she ordered a cake that said happy birthday, Jesus. And, she's telling the girl how she wants it decorated and whatnot. And then she was checking prices for different places because I guess she didn't want to cook. So she was checking different places. I think she was looking at, maybe like a gumbo or something like that. So she was checking the prices and, when you do that, well, how much is this amount and how many people will that feed and all the things when you're planning. So she was just having like a few friends over for this particular event. So she didn't need a lot, but she was just trying to figure it out. And of course, this is her typical way. And she was kind of, she was making a plan, how are we going to do this? So she would be on the phone and she would ask the people a question and she was kind of repeating what they were saying to make sure, that she was understanding them. And as she would do it, she would look at me, kind of with that look of like, what do you think? And of course I would nod in agreement that, yeah, whatever you need. Yeah, that sounds good. So I was doing what I could. I had offered to help. I mean, I was like, what can I do? But there was nothing. So really I would just stand there and I would watch her. And I guess for me, at least, it was actually, I was enjoying every minute of it because, she was just doing her thing and I just loved being with her. So during all this planning, we also decided that we were going to try to bring our Christmas lunch, our Christmas meal to the hospital because Dad will still be there. And we wanted to try and do something to just make him feel better, right? Plus, again, and you didn't really say this too much out loud, but we were both kind of under the impression that this may very well be his last Christmas. And so we were trying to just do something special and not just, leave him in the, well, we weren't going to leave him. We would come visit him, but you know what I mean? Just be stuck in the hospital food or whatever. And of course I was far away from home. They were in North Louisiana. I was living in South Louisiana. I was already down here at the time. So cooking, that really wasn't something I could really offer, but I could help her or I could pick things up or just whatever. Basically I could still be a help. I just couldn't necessarily cook a meal, at my home and bring it. So there were all these logistics that of course she was fretting over, what do we bring? How do we transport it? How do you keep it hot? Lordy, she was just like my mom, and I saw a bit of someone else in there. Imagine that. I guess I do come by my OCD planning, honestly, because I saw it in action that day. It was kind of fun. So anyway, we managed to, get it all together, and we got lunch up there. And from what I remember, Dad was kind of trying to be happy about it. I think he truly did realize how much effort we had put in to bring all of that. And I think he did appreciate it and that it did bring him some happiness. But, he was still pretty out of it. He was in some pain and he just, y'all, the flashbacks or the dreams or whatever it was that was happening, he was really not in a good headspace. His mental health was definitely taking a hit at that point. But he was trying, and he really, he showed that he appreciated what we had done. But it's kind of funny because especially looking back on it, it reminds me of that first Christmas without Mom. The one I talked about, and that was a couple episodes ago, that we were trying so hard to enjoy it. We were trying to make the best of this situation. That, oh yeah, this is great. This is working. Oh, look how great it is that we're able to do this. And it wasn't, it really wasn't. And, I mean, it was fine. It wasn't horrible or anything, but it was just, it's what you do for family. But it was just odd and weird and not where any of us wanted to be, including Dad. You know, so you're trying to put on the good face, But I even remember that the nurses, they kind of realized what we were doing, and they even commented on how nice that was that we had brought all this stuff so that we could bring Christmas to him, and just how thoughtful that was and how much trouble we had gone to and whatnot. So, like I said, the recognition of what was happening was not was not the problem. It was us OCD peeps that were that were struggling with, kind of the things that were wrong. Others saw it for what it was, and I mean, we did too. It was just, again, everything was just kind of off, and you just, I don't know, you just almost tried to ignore the things that weren't right. Okay, so here's where the intuition comes in. We both had this gut feeling, right? I had this gut feeling, and I equated it to Dad because of his medical condition at the time. He was not well, and I'll grant you that once he got into the recovery process with the leg and everything, obviously he continued to get better, but Dad had a lot of health issues, and this seemed to really be taking him down. But this is where, for me anyway, this is where it goes crazy, or this is where you're like, it wasn't him. It wasn't him. So the time frame we're talking about obviously is in is in December of that year. My sister died in March the next year. So she took a turn and things just weren't going well. So was the feeling I was picking up on actually about her? Did she do the Jesus birthday thing because deep down she knew? And when I picked up on it, this gut feeling that this could be the last Christmas for someone, I began to analyze. And even before I knew all of what was, again, this whole intuition thing, what I even knew what that was, even then I knew to kind of go, let me think about this and look at this. It wasn't a far leap, right, to get to Dad, that it's Dad. And I mean, here's something that always, it's always amazing to me about cancer patients. I mean, we knew she was sick. Obviously, she was going through all this treatment, and this was the third time it had come back, I think. But it's so often like this with cancer patients. They kind of, on the surface, they seem fine. Okay, not fine. I understand that they're not necessarily fine, but you think they still have time, and they look, for the most part, normal. They may look a little run down, a little tired, they lost some weight, whatever. But for the most part, they look normal. They aren't bedridden, they're still possibly even going about their day and doing things. And now granted, the bedridden thing all came later. But we're talking about, this all happened within about 3 months because she died in early March. So I'm looking at her in December thinking, oh, of course she's sick. She's going through treatment and whatnot. But she looked fine. There's nothing in my brain that told me that we were 3 months away. And my point with all that is, how often do we analyze our intuition? So we look at the messages or the downloads or whatever it is that we're getting, and then we start to reason it. Or at least that's what I do. I start to go, okay, well, what could that mean? Okay, I got this message. Okay, what does that mean? What do I do with that? I think often that's where I am. What am I supposed to do with this message? Is there an action I'm meant to take that is in association with this message? Is it simply a message and I just go, okay, and move on, which is really hard for me. Again, okay, you gave me this message, you sent me this message. What am I supposed to do with it? Um, and all I really knew at the time, the only way I know to describe it is that it felt like an end that Christmas. It felt like something was ending. Um, and it felt like, okay, that last one, that was the feeling I had, that this is the last one. So for me, this is a hard one. How do you know? I think there's times when we get messages that we're meant to just sit with it and journal, like we said, and then make connections to kind of discern what it means. When do you take action though? How do you know? How do you know if your discernment is correct? Sometimes it's like, well, it's telling you to do this. They said it, you trust it, you just do it, even if it doesn't make any sense. They said do this, so that's what I'm going to do. Does anyone else, when they think of something like that, think of Noah from the Bible? Just me? That's okay. What he was told to do made zero flipping sense, but he followed the call. And I guess that's kind of where I landed when I was going through all this. That I feel like the key is to follow the call. And we may get it wrong. We may. In this case, it wasn't wrong per se. I had the wrong person. But at the end of the day, being together was the key, and we did that. I mean, in a way, we did it for the wrong person. But at the end of the day, it was for all of us, wasn't it? Wasn't it so that all of us could be together for Christmas one last time? So it leads me to maybe answering the call was the right thing to do, even if I didn't fully understand it at the time. And I'm not going to say that we were wrong, because I think we did the right thing. So maybe the thing to remember is that answering the call, it may change, or it may not look exactly like we thought it would, because our reasoning was involved. Our ego was involved. And our ego is going to deal with what we know, what's tangible, right? What's in front of us. So I think it's kind of finding that balance, having that willingness to change course when it becomes evident that it's time to do so. I followed the call. I thought I was going this way. And it was like, oh, you're supposed to do this, but you're still following. And I think that's the part that's important. Because as long as we follow what we're told, we follow that call, we follow the message, I truly believe that God, Creator, He's going to get us where we need to be, right? Someone told me one time, they said, God will put you on your path, kicking and screaming if He has to, but He will get you there. Of course, this isn't quite that dramatic, but I think it's the same idea. I think the same idea is still at play here. Things may not always look like we imagined them. But then again, I suspect that what we can imagine probably pales in comparison to what God, Creator, can do for us. What He imagines. I don't know that I can ever fully even get there on my own. So, again, I think the important thing is to trust and to just kind of follow what we feel like we're supposed to be doing. If a call is placed on our heart, to follow that call. God knows what that outcome is going to be, and He knows that it's going to be the right thing at the end of the day. So maybe following the call is not about being right. It's about just being willing. Willing to listen, willing to act, willing to stay open when the story shifts. If love was shared, if presence was shared, then the call was answered, even if the outcome wasn't what we expected. So if you're in a season where you're questioning your intuition, maybe you're wondering if you missed something or second guessing what you felt, I want to offer you this. What if you didn't misinterpret the message? What if you lived it exactly as you were meant to? Again, we don't always get to see the full picture, but I believe that when we lead with love and presence and trust, we're never really off path, are we? Thank you for sitting with me in this story. Again, this is Soulful Wonderings. And until next time, trust what's calling you, even if you don't understand it yet.